Welcome to Kelly's Quest, the Transnational Journey, 50 states and 50 stories. New York has a long history of civil rights activism, from Harriet Tubman and Frederick Douglass to the start of the women's rights movement and the 1969 Stonewall riots. Thanks to activists such as Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera, the Stonewall riots led to the first Pride Parade in 1970 in New York City. This tradition of advocacy can be found with our two guests on this episode. Angelina Bouros is a community advocate who stood up to hatred and bigotry by bringing her community together after a hate crime. Bree Fram is an openly transgender lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Air Force. Not only does she protect our country, she is working hard to overturn the trans-military ban that went into effect in April of 2019. We met with Bree, also an avid disc golfer, at Stony Kill Disc Golf Course in Chatham, New York, to talk about her career in the military and her fight against the trans-military ban. This is the first time I've had a disc golfer on the show with me, so thank you.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here, and any chance to get on the course is great and to see something new, so I'm excited to talk and to play a little golf.
The thing that struck me instantly was that you're a rocket scientist. I mean,
at least by education.
Well, that says something, though.
Yeah, I've got an undergrad in aerospace engineering and a master's in astronautical engineering. Though the only time I'd say I really got to use that was when I was in jury duty in college and someone was fiddling with their chair, trying to get it to recline. And they say, damn it, it would take a rocket scientist to figure this thing out. And I said, well, I'm a rocket scientist. Can I help you? I'm in the United States Air Force. Air Force? Yes, okay. I'm a lieutenant colonel on active duty with, it'll be 17 years this January. I didn't come out until 2016 when by policy we could come out. For all that time prior to that point, I was risking my career if I mentioned anything about being trans. My wife describes it beautifully. She says we lived an edited life, where it's like we had to put this filter that sat in between our thoughts and either our actions or our words. And even that slight delay when you're asked, what'd you do this weekend? Who were you with? And to have to think about it and slow down, that affects how you perform. Yep. And while we say, you know, trans people do amazing things everywhere, and in the military it's the same way. You can have great performance, you can have incredible performance, but you're not at your peak. Until that filter is gone and you can be your authentic self, you're not reaching your full potential. I'm back.
The April 2019 trans-military ban reversed a 3-year precedent put in place by President Obama in 2016, which allowed trans service members to serve openly. So in 2016, what was that like for those 2 years or 3 years of like, oh my goodness, I can be my authentic self?
I still can, because there is a class of exempt individuals right now. And because I came out and prior to the imposition of this ban, got a diagnosis of gender dysphoria on my military medical record, I fall under an exemption to the policy. And should I medically transition, I'm still allowed to do so because I have this. So I'm still very much out, very much who I am.
Okay, good.
And don't have to be in the closet, which is fantastic. It was not ideal because it wasn't on the time frame that was of my choosing. So to have this window that said, your opportunity closes on April 11th, 2019, and you got to make your decision now about looking into this crystal ball and predicting your future, that was really tough to have to do. Because as you know, that gender dysphoria comes with this criteria that says you experience clinically significant distress,
right,
which is wide open for interpretation. I've certainly never felt that, you know, a distress is affecting my performance. So there's a class of us that are basically an endangered species right now, maybe 2,000 people that have that diagnosis and have or are allowed at some point to do a medical transition in the military. So no one new can join, and no one new can come out. It's still dangerous too, because in the policy, it says if one of the courts finds that this grandfathering clause that allows us to continue to serve is a reason to find the policy to be discriminatory, that clause is severed and we can all be kicked out. And so we still live in this world of uncertainty over what could happen to us at any given day. I can take that.
The wind caught it a little
Should have
bit, but not
something.
bad. Yep. You were mentioning earlier you have a wife and you have children. That means that they as well had to up their timeline.
Absolutely. Everything is done in context.
Yep.
And not something my family may have been ready for. It was some very difficult conversations about what does this mean, why now, why, and it's not easy, not by any means.
Bree is an active member of Sparta, an LGBT advocacy group for military members. They are at the front lines fighting the trans military ban and were recently awarded for their work by the Academy of United States Veterans. How many people are part of the Sparta organization?
We have about 1,000 people that are currently serving that are part of our group. Estimate is that there's about 15,000 or up to that number currently serving. But we're kind of a word-of-mouth type organization. People don't always know about us because for the longest time we were a very secret organization. Before anyone could come out, finding out other people who are in this group was extremely difficult. We're in this weird mix where some LGBT folks will rage against us just because we're members of the military, whereas others will, rage against the military for any other host of policies. But we see us as an ability to work change from the inside and to be a force for good. And you get this weird divide thinking that the military is this very conservative, very hidebound organization. But the military is also an organization of young people. It's nice when you can see courses where they put the money into it and have nice features like this. Every once in a while you get to surprise yourself with a nice shot.
That was a very good shot.
Thank you.
I remember going and sitting in front of a bunch of 7th graders and saying, I'm a transgender woman, ask me a question. And that was daunting the first time I did it, but they didn't control my livelihood.
Honestly, I can't remember the first time I spoke on behalf of Sparta. For some reason that memory isn't jumping to me. But the challenge is often the restrictions that we face in our speech because of the uniform we wear. And so there are certain things we can't say or offer an opinion on. So in many cases, we're sticking to the facts and trying to share stories. But for a lot of advocates, the passion and the fire comes from the emotion they have around the story or the cause. Right. And sometimes that's a little absent. So we have to find other ways to generate that emotional response and that connection, that shared humanity is what we have to emphasize, because we can't be firebrands. We can't be lobbing grenades in this case. It's always interesting in how do you order your identity? And generally, being trans is probably number 6, 7, 12, whatever the case may be, that you're all these other things and you just happen to be trans. I usually have spouse, parent, child, airman, rocket scientist, several other hobbies, disc golf included. Then yeah, I'm trans too.
I really liked the layout of Stony Hill.
Well worth the travel.
Yes, it was. Can you tell us your coming of age story, for lack of a better word?
When I was 4 and 5 or 3 and 4, I was Wonder Woman for Halloween 2 years in a row, which was a little odd. And there's a great picture of me and my sister in matching Wonder Woman onesies at Halloween. But I didn't have the words or the thoughts or anything to describe it at that age. By the time I was in the 8 to 10 range, I started getting into my mom's things. Still didn't know what it meant, but just that I had this draw to them. And my parents ended up catching me 10, 11 years old, somewhere in there, in my mom's things. Sent me to a psychologist who, after a session or two, basically told them, he's normal enough. Because, I'm a typical weird kid in any sort of other ways. And the issue from their perspective was just forgotten about at that point. But it didn't go away for me, right. Certainly. And all through the teenage years, I continued finding ways to express myself. But at that age, is this identity or is this sexual? Because everything as a teenager has sexual connotations for it. So you have to work through that. And I didn't come to the realization that it was truly identity until about the time I was in my late 20s, or around the time I was turning 30. Even though I knew it was a part of me that wasn't going away. And when I met the woman who was to be my wife, I told her 3 weeks after we started dating, and this is when I was 20, she was 21, because I knew I couldn't hide that. It was enough of who I was, and even though I didn't know what it was or what it meant, I had to share it. Because it would come out at some point, and if it was after years of being together, that can be disastrous. Not for what it is, but for the secrets that you've kept.
Right.
I usually use the roller coaster analogy. We have our highs, we have our lows, but we're still together. We still love one another, but it's not easy. Not easy in any way. And once again, it's the context. It's not just me, it's her. By me changing, or at least the perception of me changing, it changes her too. It challenges her femininity. It challenges her sexual identity. There's a lot going on there, and it's not easy. And continued stressors certainly are going to come of it.
Now, when you go do these talks in front of the military, is your spouse there with you?
So we got to do one together while I was serving at the Pentagon to the Air Force's Personnel Diversity Organization. That was fabulous because she's great at telling her story. And we've done that a couple other times. We do some interviews together, and it really shows a different aspect of it that I think is incredibly valuable. Getting her perspective is awesome.
You're in the Air Force, and when people hear of the Air Force, they might think Top Gun pilot.
So everyone assumes I'm a pilot. If I say I'm in the Air Force, they say, "What do you fly?" And my standard response is, "Well, I fly a Mark 1 Delta Echo Sierra Kilo." Like, "Oh, what's that?" "That's a desk. I fly a desk." And we actually we have an annual health assessment that asks us, please describe your primary duty responsibilities. And this year I put in that my primary duties are sending email and alternately smiling and frowning at people. And that's what I do, because now I'm a relatively senior officer. I'm a commander, so I spend a lot of my time on administrative stuff. But the bulk of the rest of the work and the fun part is leading the people towards our mission goals. And right now I've got awesome stuff going on in cyberspace research and mostly counter-drone work. So in a way that we can point around and say, oh, that drone, I want that one to fall out of the sky. I want that one to go land over here. And I want that one to just wait because I'm not sure about that one and what its intent is. And coming up with the ways to protect our people and our assets from this really new and emerging threat, it's fun. It's a great mission with great people, and it's really an honor to do that. And as far as I know, I'm the senior ranking officer in the Air Force who happens to be trans. And to be able to look out for our junior airmen, our people that have been in for a year or two, and across the services who may be a Latino person serving in the infantry and the Marines, and say, I've got the capacity and the capability to speak on their behalf where they don't. And we have this ethos, leave no one behind. I want to make sure they're doing okay. So because of my privilege and my position, I can go do those things. And I have the support of my leadership to do that, which is incredible. So why not? I'll take that burden for now.
The military wants you to also be a unit.
Right. That ability to conform is necessary for some things. But when you're asked to conform for something that has nothing to do with the mission or your ability to carry it out, that's where we have a problem, because that's where you force people to expend mental or physical energy to conform that they could be spending on getting the job done. And that's a message the military needs to understand a lot better. And it does. We're trying, but we're handcuffed in certain ways by the policies we're currently under. So we keep spreading the message that, hey, take that energy and focus it on the mission. We're all going to be better for it.
What are some things that people can do to help Sparta, can help this trans-military ban go away?
First, speak out and share stories. And correct something on the spot if you see bigotry or hatred. If you're in a capability and a position to do that safely, do it. The second is call or write your elected representatives. I had the luxury and the awesome experience of working for a year on Capitol Hill. And every once in a while, we have an issue come up and the staff would debate the issue and what Congresswoman's position would be. And we present it to her and she'd often say, has anyone contacted us on this? And in many cases, it was one person, one person says, I think you should do this on this issue, you said, all right, that's what my constituents care enough to write me about. We'll go that way. So please write or call your elected representatives. And the last, donate to organizations that are fighting. If you have the capability to do so, that's critical. Because most of these big organizations are run by volunteers and on shoestring budgets.
Oh my, don't look away
That
from
was
that one. That's right in the
not
middle
what
of
I was
it.
hoping to do.
In 2016, it was announced that trans people could serve openly in the military for the first time. Bree decided to use this opportunity to come out publicly.
So we had an inkling of when it was going to be, and it was Pride Month, and the secretary was going to give a speech on the 30th. I'm like, that's got to be it. Leading up to that, I figured, okay, it's time. I can be a much more effective advocate, an ally, and storyteller if I'm out. So a week before that occurred, I sent a note to close friends and family, letting them know what my story was and what the situation was, and I got a great amount of love back from them, which was fantastic.
That's huge to have family support.
It was. My friends and my family were amazing. So the day approached, and the secretary was going to place in the Pentagon to give the speech, but I had a Facebook post ready to go to the world and an email ready to go to my colleagues that said, I'm trans, here's why it's important, and here's why I'm coming out now. So the secretary finished speaking, and I hesitated. Do I want to click post? Do I want to click send? Eventually I got over that. I hit post, I hit send, and I ran away. I went down to the gym in the bowels of the Pentagon, got on the elliptical machine. I think for me it was more that just, it was time. It was time to get rid of that filter that had sat in my brain for so long. It was time to be who I was and to be that effective advocate that I wanted to be and be open and honest about who I was. Hypocrisy is not something I really enjoy, and if I can't teach good habits to my kids by modeling them myself, that hits on me too. So eventually I did have to get off the elliptical and get back to work. And I went back to my office, open bay with a bunch of people working around me, and I sat down. One by one, my colleagues walked over to me, shook my hand, and said, it's an honor to serve with you.
Oh my goodness.
And I was floored. And they really had it backwards because it's my honor to serve with them. Hopefully it's an indication of where we're going towards, and that more and more people are going to have that luxury when they come out of receiving that kind of welcome. The downside was, though I lost no friends and family, had all this love, my wife lost friends and family over it. And how silly to drop someone from your life, because not even in something they did, but of who they love, and my wife's refusal to abandon me over this. That she would have people say, no, I know we've been friends for 20 years. I guess we're done because I just can't accept that. Or family members to say the same thing. So it's still not easy. And it's unfortunate that all of that fell on her while she saw me receiving nothing but love. My wife is incredible, and I love her for everything she's done for me and who she is as a person. It's been amazing. Coming out is a continual process. It is over and over again, and in situations you would never expect. About a week after I came out, my organization got a new 2-star general well over the top of it. He called me into his office on his second day, and we spent about an hour and a half talking about trans issues. Now before that, I had never spoke with a general for more than 5 to 10 minutes, and it was always about career counseling. It was never, hey, help me understand.
Wow.
So it was a great conversation. He's a fighter pilot. And he said, yeah, of course, before Don't Ask, Don't Tell, we knew who was gay in the unit. But if that person flying on my wing has my back, I don't care who they're spending their time with outside of here. It's, once again, about getting the job done. And that's the attitude we are all looking for. But even better, a week later, after spending this time with him, I got a call and said, hey, I'd like you to be my executive officer. And in terms of busting stereotypes, the person I went to work for after him, the colonel, and I had to explain my situation to him, and he was very unfamiliar with trans issues, and he just basically, okay, you do what you need to do. When he retired about 9 months later, He called me into his office and he said, "You broke my stereotype. I didn't know what to expect, but I had this wild idea of what a trans person was. And just by coming to work, showing up every day and getting the job done and doing it well, you have completely shattered what I thought of as a trans person. So thank you for that." And I'm like, no, thank you. Just by allowing me to be myself. If I can say or hear from someone that you inspired me to do this or that and it worked really well for me, that's so rewarding, because I had plenty of those people who I followed when I was trying to come to terms with myself and understand who I was. And to see them and say thank you is so meaningful for me. It's incredibly important to put that representation out there.
You, as a military person, being a role model for trans people that want to serve and protect our country, that's huge for them to know that the two are not independent of one another. Right. You can be trans and you can serve in the military.
Absolutely. We fight and defend this nation for the same reasons as everyone else. And if we can serve to defend the ideals that are in the Constitution, that's what we're here for. And the fact that right now we're facing this ban on trans people, we may be denying ourselves our future heroes. The person who revolutionizes how we do cyber war may be a young trans kid right now, that if we can't recruit them and get that talent and that ability to change our technology and the way we operate, we have cost ourselves dearly.
So do you think that the upper echelon of the military is in support of trans people serving, and it's the administration that is against it? Because, I mean, you know, all I hear is from the news, and it's like, this general says, yeah, trans people are not causing any problem serving whatsoever, and then the president says, well, yeah, but we're not going to pay for you to have surgery or estrogen or anything else.
So I don't know anything beyond what's been reported in the news from those highest level communications. But you had plenty of reports about the chairman of the Joint Chiefs and senior officers being surprised about the tweets and the policy. And as you mentioned, we've had all 4 service chiefs testify to Congress that there have been no issues related to someone being trans. Sure, there are trans people out there who are poor members of the military, but it's not because they're trans. We have all sorts of people that are at all levels of performance.
Right.
And we're all just doing our best to get the job done. So I think senior leadership in the military is looking at ability to do the mission. And that's what they're going to care about. Because if you can do the mission, they want you on the team, because that's what we're there to do.
Getting to meet Bree and throw discs with her was a fantastic experience. So much for this, Bree.
This was incredible.
Thank you, Bree, for your service and for your dedication to our country and for your courage for coming out. Transitioning from a national to a local perspective, we next traveled to Rosendale, New York, where Angelina Bouros gave us a warm welcome to a very special house party. As we arrived, we heard music coming from the band playing in the backyard, the aroma of barbecue, and witnessed the spirit of community togetherness. They were there to paint Angelina's house in rainbow colors as an act of solidarity in a time of fear. After receiving numerous hate letters, Angelina's cat, Rambo, was found murdered.
This was not something I was going to let go, because that cat meant the world to me. You know, I might be a cat to other people, but he was my little boy.
I'm an animal lover.
I don't have children. They were my children. And somebody took one of my kids.
Yep.
You know, and that is an unforgivable act, something I wasn't willing to let go of. And I did this for him, and to alert the community and to alert the haters and the bigots, know that I am not going to be intimidated. You are not allowed to do this. This is not acceptable. And I'm going to have the community here to support me and to, you know, for their outpouring of support, their outrage at what this person or persons did.
Right.
And just to let everybody know and just to gain some community support. And I also am a very strong believer on making positive things out of negative situations.
Right.
You know, to turn a negative into positive, that he wasn't killed and I didn't receive these hate mail over nothing. That I was going to somehow turn this around on itself and make something positive out of it. And today we came together. I got so much support from everybody. 98% of the people that came today to show their support, that wanted to come and just paint something, are complete strangers to me. I've never met them, never spoke to them, and that really touched my heart.
Can you kind of explain, how did you bring the community together? Who were some of the people out in the community that helped this to happen?
I figured if anything was going to get done, I had to start getting the word out. So I'm
Right.
all over Facebook and stuff like that. I'm all over the community. I've been on the news before because of LGBTQ events and situations. And I started just to put it out there, and I've started to getting a lot of positive feedback and opinions from people like, wow, I think that's a great idea. I was contacted by this person, Patrick. He's a paint manager over at Herzog's Home Center here in Kingston. And he said, we heard about your story and we would like to contribute the paint.
That's huge.
So Herzog's donated free of charge 16 gallons of paint to paint this house. That just touched my heart.
Yeah.
Along with all the other people that got involved and said, yes, we want to come, we want to put a hand in this, we want to paint, we want to support you.
What did it take for this house to go from looking like what it did this morning to looking like this?
I've been prepping this house for about a week and a half. Three of my friends came up from Long Island to help me prep the house. My girlfriend Bernadette has helped me prep this house. And so it's taken a lot of effort from all of us to get this house ready.
Who knows what kid out there right now is looking at this thinking, oh, a community will rally around me.
I believe that things happen for reasons. Sometimes we know why things happen, sometimes we don't. But if we don't look for the reasons why things might have happened, we'll never find out.
Yep.
I'm always looking for the good in the bad. That when situations occur, challenges happen, problems come about, that those are the potentials to make us stronger or weaker.
Yep.
And I'm always up to face a challenge. And when somebody takes my kid, to me, that goes beyond a challenge. I have to stand up. And a lot of people have been concerned that my doing this might bring some real, sick people out. But you know what? I can't live my life, and I won't live my life in a bubble. I will not be intimidated by people. Nobody is going to tell me or dictate to me what my life is going to be like. People cannot dictate to me that I have to live a certain way or wear certain clothes. I do what I want. This is my life and my journey. And when you invade my space, I'm the kind of person who will push back. Because the person, I'm sure, who wrote the letter, the person who killed my cat, are cowards. They're bullies. And bullies, 99.9% of them, pick on things smaller and weaker than them.
Yeah.
But I won't allow a bully to pick on me and do what they did to me without some kind of pushback. And if they don't have the courage, again, to come to my face and voice their opinion, this is my message to them. In lieu of the political atmosphere that we're experiencing today, this is a very transformative time for everybody, even more so for the LGBTQ community.
Yep.
And again, I have to voice my opinion and my feelings about the political climate, and it makes me more determined and more resilient to take a stronger stand against any kind of hatred or bigotry.
I mean, to be honest, trans people are some of the strongest people I've ever met.
We have to be.
I think we are. And I also, by definition, we're rule breakers.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we do. As soon as we say we are trans, we are breaking some kind of rule, and that's kind of how I approach it. Is we are meant to go break rules and break down barriers and go change the world.
We absolutely are. And let's take our LGBTQ people in the military. Some of the people in the government that don't want them in the military, those people in the government that don't want them in the military aren't even good enough to shine their shoes. They would never put their lives on the line like these men and women in the military do. With so much discord in this world, so much anger and angst and resentment and frustration and anxiety, the world can't afford another angry, upset, misguided person. This world needs every happy person it can get.
Yep.
And when any society denies a person their happiness, they're setting themselves up for failure. We cannot allow society, even our own families, to dictate who we... Listen, if anybody loves us, at the end of the day, they should want us to be happy. End of story. No matter what it is to be happy, get out of my way. If somebody is going to be unhappy with who we are, that makes us happy, then they have to go. Life is too short to put up with fools. I've had to say goodbye to family members. But you know what? That's on them. I've had a rough life. Yeah. And they've seen I was a drug addict for 35 years. I spent over 13 years of my life in a variety of state prisons because I grew up so confused that when I was old enough and could go out into society and I was able to get my hands on alcohol and drugs, it blew my life apart. But now, that was over 25 years ago. Now I'm the happiest person I've ever been. And now I knew exactly what got me to this point in my life. You know, I grew up so confused because I had nobody to talk to, nobody to tell me anything about who I was. I knew what I liked, I knew what I wanted to be, but I dare not say that to nobody, so I kept it stuffed inside of me most of my life. You know, but those days are gone. They're over. This is what you see, this is what you get. I'm the real deal. You know, so like me, love me, hate me, I don't care. This is who I am. But I live a good life. I'm a productive member of society. You know, I mean, I manage the maintenance and security of a dozen medical facilities as a career. I have a very busy and thriving home maintenance and remodeling business. I'm a trans person. This isn't supposed to happen to us. You know what? It can, it will, and it does.
Oh, it does. And you're fighting it with a beautiful house now. I mean, your house,
It
I'm
did
sure
a
was
great
beautiful.
job.
I mean, it truly is breathtaking.
It's vibrant.
It's vibrant. It represents who you are. It is a symbol of
It's
hope.
a symbol of hope.
People that are going to drive by, they're going to see it and they're going to be like, oh yeah, we can fight the good fight.
I just want to say that I'm just thrilled at the amazing turnout and the support of the people that came today. You know, it's very touching. You know, the care and concern is overwhelming, but it feels wonderful to know that the community stands together in the face of badness, in the face of evil, that we came and we conquered.
Yep.
And that was my goal.
Can I get a hug?
Sure.
Bree and Angelina's stories are both filled with resilience and serve as an inspiring reminder to persevere. Next stop, Pennsylvania, where we visited Ovid Amerson, youth minister at Chestnut Hill United Church, and went disc golfing to hear about their journey of faith. I want to thank everyone who made a donation. Your generosity is what makes the Transnational journey possible. To help grow the show, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.